Welcome back to another episode of the Illuminated Path podcast. I'm your host, Liv, and today I am welcoming to the show, all the way from Spain, Jenna Harrison. Jenna is a top ranked business coach, podcast host, and founder of The Uncommon Way. I'll drop all of her information in our show notes. And today, in particular, we're going to talk about the 3-day work week and how to not only grow your business or your company faster, but also work smarter in the process. If you're an entrepreneur, this is definitely going to be a great listen for you. But for anyone really looking to take back their time and just look at their schedule and spaciousness in a little bit of a different way, highly recommend listening to this conversation. So, The Uncommon Way, Jenna's business, is a movement helping women entrepreneurs and leaders rewrite the rules of business to scale with alignment and freedom. She has a signature method called the Uncommon Edge, where she helps ambitious women uncover what truly sets them apart so they can attract ideal clients, leverage strategy effectively, and clarify their most magnetic messaging. When she's not coaching or recording the Uncommon Way podcast, you'll find her in Spain, hiking mountain trails and exploring the coastline with friends and family. So, really excited that we got to record this episode and introduce you to Jenna and the amazing work that she's doing with the Uncommon Way. So let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the Illuminated Path podcast. I'm your host, Liv, founder of Eno Wellness Collective. My wellness journey started with yoga, which led me down the path of exploring healing modalities like meditation, breath work, sound healing, mindset work, and so much more. This exploration inspired my mission to help others find what lights them up. Get comfortable and curious as we learn from experts, teachers, and creators who are lighting up their communities and living an inspired, expansive life. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of the Illuminated Path podcast. And I'm so excited to welcome today to the show, Jenna. So welcome.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Well, I'm really excited to share your work with the Eno Wellness community and with the Illuminated Path community. When you reached out about coming onto the show, I thought this is an aligned fit, absolutely. And I am excited to share more about, your work and especially digging into the 3-day work week this week or this episode. But before we do that, when I was learning about you and, your current life, I thought, this is amazing. I was reading in your bio that you retired your husband, you moved to a dream location, you bought your dream house, you live a blue zone, lifestyle overseas. And so before we get into, your path and how that all unfolded, I would love for you to share just a little bit of a day in your life out there. What is a typical day for you out in Spain and kind of get us into the typical day for you first?
Okay, great. Yeah, I would love to. It's so funny when you're actually living in it and it just doesn't seem that different. But then you think back about how you used to live and it's night and day different. But nowadays, my son lives pretty close, so I can just walk him down the hill to school, which is wonderful. I can shut my laptop at 3:30 and pick him up from school, go to the playground. One thing I notice here is that it's very, very social. And so we have a lot of friends. And I think back on times when I was working so much in my business and the friendship part really suffered. I didn't have, I'd have these coffee chats with people once in a while and we'd talk and say, oh, it's so great to catch up. But there wasn't that um, daily, um, like connection with people, which interestingly enough, speaking of the blue zone lifestyle, is something that is supposed to be so important, right? That someone's going to miss you when you're gone, that you have someone that you're excited to, talk to and see, and you can share everything. And so that's something that I really like when I was thinking about working less for myself. What was in my mind was, oh my God, I just want to breathe. Like, I just want to breathe. I just want to take a breath for a minute. But what I didn't realize is what I was really stepping into were kind of these deep connections. My son gets to spend more time with both me and my husband because I chose to rewrite the rules in the beginning. And so now I get to go on, long hikes with my friends through the hills and have we always like to try out different restaurants for lunch. And there are days when I work, there are days when I don't work, and it just feels very fluid. Like I can make sure that I'm creating exactly the business that fits me like a glove and the life that fits me like a glove. I'm not living somewhere because this is where the jobs are, this is where everybody lives. I choose it. Like I intentionally choose it and I get to choose my life.
Mm. Yeah, what I hear from that explanation of your lifestyle right now is just also a lot of spaciousness, right? Like the ease and the flow that comes with space and not running back to back to back, the busy kind of treadmill. So I know that that's something that I personally try to design in my life as well. And I know a lot of my clients do too, is like just creating that space and that ease and that flow in your life. So tell us a little bit about how the journey has been for you. Pre-Spain, what was the life before? You kind of alluded to it a bit, but I would love to know, like, what has your path been from your past, your past life into your current, design of your life?
Yes, yes. When I look back, I see a lot of moving away from alignment and then moving back into alignment. And when I'm away from alignment, interestingly enough, these are the times, and I've spoken to other people that can now see this for themselves in hindsight as well, but it's the times when you're doing everything right. On paper, everything looks right, except what actually works for you. And so I remember in corporate when I was, in my 20s and I I had I had done it. I'd done it. I had the job, I had the apartment, I had the supportive boyfriend and bosses, and I was walking along with my friend Julie one day and she's like, "Oh my gosh, you must just feel so lucky." And I stopped and I said, "Honestly, I kind of feel like I'm withering here." And I immediately felt shame. I immediately felt so guilty, like, how can I even ask for more? And yet I had said it, and so I couldn't unsay it again. It was there. No longer could I just skip lunch and, sit through these like boring, boring meetings and look down from my office on the green market below and people walking around at 10:30 in the morning shopping. I'm thinking, who are these people, right? How do I get this life? And so what that did is it helped me align to where I wanted to go and then start to create that, which obviously for me was having my own business. For some of my clients in corporate, it just means restructuring how they work, but it's about finding what you want to do. And then I've noticed even in business, like this happened to me not too long ago, but my son was really settled in kindergarten and I thought, okay, great. I'm going to do it. I'm going to create the seven-figure business. And I was at multiple six figures then and I'd been kind of hanging out for a few years there, really comfy, had a really nice, wonderful business and I'd done a lot of work by that point, but once again, I noticed myself, um, kind of deferring to what the right path was, and as if I hired these consultants to help me with my podcast, as if in order to reach people, I need to become a bro marketer just because it's cold traffic rather than warm traffic. I mean, it's amazing when I look back, but at the time, it all felt like so logical. It felt like exactly what I have to be doing. Just like when I was working so much, I told myself, I'm just doing this right now because it's just this phase of my business, right? You gotta hustle in the beginning. You gotta work hard. You gotta be scrappy. At the same time, I had my infant child, and I was working for 2 years. I would work nap times and evenings, and I would only take a break Friday evenings, and that was only because I felt like an absent wife. I felt so guilty that I had to, have some night with my husband, but other than that, I just worked all the time, and I just got to a point where my body felt so broken and I wasn't creating the results. I was actually spending 3 times as long, to create anything because my cup wasn't full. I didn't have the bandwidth, and I now know, which I did not know then. I've done a lot of, somatic work and research into neuroscience, and we those centers of our brain literally shut down when we're in this activated state. We don't have access to our creativity. We don't even have access to our goal setting. If you've ever felt that, like, "Ugh, should I just give it all up? Or why even, like, do I even really want to take that on?" It's because of dopamine. Like, dopamine is our goal setting, goal achieving hormone. And we need to create spaciousness, ironically, we need to slow down in order to go fast.
Mm, yes, I'm like, "Yes, double click on that," right? It's like, we need to slow down in order to go fast. And it
Yeah.
sounds I love hearing about your journey too. I see a lot of, similarities in our paths as well, but it's one thing I notice as you share it too is just the evolution that happens a couple different times, especially in your business, where maybe the first evolution is like leaving corporate and starting your own business, and then experiencing another evolution with motherhood, and then experiencing another evolution of like six figure to seven figure. Do I even want to go there? Like, what is that expansion? How does that happen? And so
Yes.
when you think of those evolutions, that have happened, what do you feel like has been, I guess, even something you've told yourself in the process of, like, every time it gets to that stretchy point, right? That little stretchy, that
Yes.
before you take the leap, like, what has your mindset been during those evolutions of your business?
So, very early on, when I was in one of those discomfort stretch points, I had a friend say to me, "Well, why don't you just give it up? You don't have to do it. Why don't you just not do it?" And in that moment, of course, I was able to smile and realize there was no way in hell I was going to give up this business. Like, this is so much to me, and it's really does feel like my life's work. I believe really strongly that I'm here to do this, and so ever since then, I have that muscle memory where when I get to those stretch points and I feel those thoughts, or I just, it gets so frustrating, I am able to smile, luckily, and just be like, yeah, but you're going to figure it out. Like, you're not going to just close shop. Yeah.
And so sometimes you do need that, like, are you gonna what's the alternative route, right? What's the plan B, and just kind of going down that path to then bring you back to center, right? And bring you back to the goal of why you started your business in the first place. I know
Yeah.
I'm surprisingly starting to work with more and more, entrepreneurs and people that are starting businesses. Like, in my coaching business, I primarily focus on, health and wellness and mindset, but it has been attracting a lot of entrepreneurs that are like, I'm starting a business. I have this passion project. I'm looking to evolve what I do. And so I've been, really, coaching a lot of women through this exact thing that you're explaining, right? This evolution of, like, well, what, there are alternatives, but it, really grounding into why you started what you're doing. So, when I was looking at the work that you do, some a little phrase stood out to me that we'll dig into today, which is around wanting to grow faster, but at the same time working smarter. And so,
Mm.
one of the topics that we work what that I really wanted to explore with you is this concept of the 3-day work week, because I know a lot of people listening will be like, okay, I've heard of the 4-day work week. I actually don't even want to be working the 40 work, the working less than 5 days seems like impossible. And so when I saw that this is something that you explore, I wanted to hear where this stemmed from for you, and how you are actually working smarter, right, in order to make this happen and make this a reality.
Oh, yeah, such a great question. It was not something that I set out to do, like, I need to create this 3-day work week. It was actually something that so much of my work is really about stretching what's possible, right? Seeing what we're capable of, really kind of shaking out all the things that we've been carrying, that why are we doing it that way, actually? What do we want to create intentionally? And so I started to work fewer hours, and then I saw that my business increased. And then I, of course, rebounded and I went back to being a workaholic. And then I started to reduce my hours again. And each time I did, I would see massive gains in my business. And so I was, of course, always sharing this with my clients. Some of them started experimenting with it, and they started seeing the same thing. So we really knew that we were onto something. And a 3-day work week is just one of the things we do to stretch ourselves. But it is a really beautiful stretch, because it's like, if you can do that, you can do anything. right? Nothing else seems like impossible, or you just start questioning everything from then on about how you do and what you do. So it's a really fun place to start, even if some of my clients say, "I love my work. I really don't want to work just 3 days. I'd miss it. I really want to work 5 days a week," and that's absolutely fine. Sometimes, that is, I really believe in like this theory of right conditions. You really need to find the right conditions for you. And so for some people, those are their right conditions. But what we've noticed is that for those that want to try it, they usually don't end up working as many hours when they go back to their ideal conditions. They don't work as many hours as they thought they needed to or that they were. And I can explain more about why that is if you're curious.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay.
I'm curious about what your experience, what you noticed in your experiment, and then the patterns, right, of like, oh, my clients are also noticing this, or just if there were any, themes that came up as you got into experimenting with the 3-day work week.
Yeah, my path was definitely very, of course, you always go first, right? So for
Yes.
me, it was very difficult to achieve this. And I would go into these spirals where 2, 3 days would go by, and then I'd realize, oh my gosh, I am back in that thing again, and I'd have to purposely go to sleep and get a good night's sleep and and start take care of myself again. And um, what I finally realized was that for me, there was, of course, a lot of the identity gets tied up in yourself as a producer, as being able to do it all, as a high performer. And I needed to unwind all of that. But also, there was a body level, there was a somatic level that needed to be repatterned for me because it's like when you um, go on vacation and then you're like, "Oh, I can't wait to relax," but you get there and you actually feel agitated. You feel antsy and you wanna pick up your phone and look at your phone, and that is because of your body, not your mind, usually, in those moments. And what's going on is that you're just so accustomed, right, to that level of activation that it becomes your new baseline, and if you drop below it, it feels threatening to the body, so you stimulate yourself again to get back to where you feel comfortable. And so that is something that I didn't understand in the earlier days when I kind of tried to think my way out of it. And that's why it really never landed for me and really never worked. Because when I understood this component of it, then I was able to really do for me, much harder work. It felt very uncomfortable to scale back, but, that's what I was really the breakthrough, and then that's what helped my clients move into it more quickly because they had this extra set of tools. Yeah, but
Mm.
the themes were always like, um, just dealing with the identity themes that come up and the fears, right? The fears that, but my business is going to collapse. I have so many clients that they'll try it on and then they'll get great results and they'll be like, "Oh my god, this actually works." And it's as if they're surprised. Like, "Well, yes, that's why you started working with me." Because you believed it was possible. But it still is like you have to wrap your head around it. It's not what you'd expect.
Yes, I hear you so definitely on the, getting ourselves in these patterns and then noticing like, oh, why do I always get to the edge of burnout, or why am I always overbooked, or whatever it might be, right? It's like these
Yes.
patterns that we find ourselves in, and then we're like, oh, we're here again, we're here again, and being able
Yes.
to like regulate, or noticing how I love that example of the vacation, right? Of like it takes a little bit of time to regulate yourself, or like you start to decompress a bit from just what like the autopilot that we're in so much. So
Yes. I have so
it's
many of them.
yeah, it's
All
huge.
those patterns that I get to say, "Hello, old friend."
Yes, yes. I'm actually
Yeah.
in a phase right now really of simplifying my business a lot, and I'm noticing even this month, right in November, where when we're recording, I intentionally said this, November is going to be, I'm going to try to really keep some spaciousness in November. I'm going to create space for creativity to come through. I'm going to just not feel like I have to cram everything into this month. And I'm really noticing the results, first of all, but also just like the pattern of wanting to book something else or do something else or launch something else. Like I'm catching
Yes.
myself wanting to do that with the space. Like not now that I have the space, not like the not filling it. And so I imagine that is like it's like practice, keeping to come back to that reminder of like, this is what you asked for. This is what you asked for. So I'm sure that's come up for your
Yes.
clients too.
Yes, yes, and I've been there myself. I completely relate to that. It's like, "Oh, but this would be a perfect time just to get it done." That is the sneakiest thought that I have, by the way, in my own head is, "I'll just do this first. I'll just knock this out. I'll just get this out of the way." For me, that is a dream killer. That one thought alone, now that I can recognize it, I know it's like, "Ooh, there you are again, not you."
Yeah.
No.
So when you do look at your calendar, right, and we'll just use you as the example here. When you do look at, okay, I have 5 days worth of, I could be on my computer 9 to 5 for 5 days a week, or I could start to
Easily.
scale back things. Yeah. With that time, right, you can fill it. But with the, I'm going to scale back a little bit and really try to condense, not even scale back, but condense what I do into a shorter amount of time. What do you notice are the first things that are going, right? Or either getting moved or like optimized? What type of things are not on your plate in the 3-day work week?
Yes. So there are kind of three buckets that you want to look at. The first is your offer, right? Because you do want sales to be easy. You don't want to be having to chase the sales all the time. Easy in quotes, of course. We're all entrepreneurs, or many of your listeners are entrepreneurs, so we know the deal, right? There's always going to be all sorts of new things to learn and challenges, right? But that's the fun part. But you want to feel like people love this offer. People don't find this offer anywhere else. You feel very comfortable and happy to sell this offer. And you know how to talk to people who are your best fit clients, right? So that they really can feel that sense of resonance. The second bucket is the systems in place. You know, how do they flow through that? Where is all that extra busy work of yours going? And does that really need to be there? And then the final thing is how you are as an entrepreneur, as a CEO. That's what we've been talking to up till now, right? If you're the one that's always rebooking in the the places in your calendar, or your team sees you doing that, and so they start booking in extra things, as well, that trickles down. So those are the three buckets that we tend to look at first to really obviously, if someone comes to me with a really activated nervous system and I know they're not performing at their highest level, that's the first thing we're going to work on. But then after that, those are the three buckets that we need to look at, because we tend to think that time creates results, right? The more time I put into it, the more results I create, or the more hard work I put into it, the harder it is, the better results I'll get. But actually, it's not, right? It's the value you create, it's the resonance you create for people, the solutions that you can come up with for them that really is what creates the results. And that doesn't necessarily, I mean, it doesn't at all take time. I mean, how many we've all had these experiences where we've had a really great, like yoga session or a workout or something, and all of a sudden the idea pops into our mind, boom, like fully formed, all done, there it is. And that didn't take time, right? That took connection. It took tuning in to, however you think about it, your intuition or your higher self or something, just opening those channels. And that is really what creates what is valuable in this world. And more so with AI, those deep personal insights and the way that you talk about it, the metaphor that helps people see what you're talking about, those are gold for you. And,
Mm.
it's interesting because John Maynard Keynes, he was an economist back when we were first talking about industrialization, and he predicted that, decades forth, people would only work 3 days a week. Like there was no other reason. There was no reason with the advances in humanity and the ease that we would have and the abundance that we'd have that we would need to work more than 3 days a week. But what he didn't take into account was the human brain and all of our pattern systems and how people would still keep perpetuating those systems even though they weren't necessary.
Yes, and finding that resonance, I think that really does hit for me because I do feel like creating the space, it goes back to spaciousness too, right? The space for
Mhm.
yourself to have ideas, to think, to dream, to have the name of the program come through, right? It's like to have that space.
Yes.
It isn't really the time, it is the space. I notice I intentionally build in a lot of time for like travel and time off and vacation throughout the year. And I noticed that those times when I'm out there just living what I talk about are the times that like new clients come through. Like I'll have my biggest month at a
Yes.
time where I'm not actually at my computer, but when I'm in Bali for a month with my family, right? Like I notice
Yes.
it is when when I get into the energy of my offers and when I'm able to share from that, place that people resonate with it the most sometimes.
100%. I am so there with you. My husband used to joke like, "Oh, I guess we need to go on vacation again so you can hit that month that you hit that time."
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
and for a lot of entrepreneurs that are used to, having like a launch period, right? Of like, I'm going to launch in January, then I'm going to launch in April, I'm launch in September. That whole experience too is such an energetic experience of like holding the energy through a launch, your mindset through a launch, like and some a lot of work goes into the launch, but then once you're kind of open to, accepting new clients, it is like it's a mindset shift, right? It's not like I'm gonna have to be at my
Yes.
computer 9 to 5, like, I have to hold this container, so, yeah, I would love to know if there's
Yeah.
anything experience yourself or coach others through when it comes to those launches within your business.
Yeah. Some of my clients have a launch model, but many don't. They've just opted out of it. So I think the first thing to get real with is, do you want that? Because you don't have to have it, right? And these, again, are the things that we just kind of absorb and pick up, and then we end up doing it. So you just want to get really clear on, what do I want? If I'm a beautiful creator, I have absolute power. What am I choosing to create, right? What do I want to see my reality as? And then if it does include launches, then yes, it's so important to, first of all, um, be intentional and work beforehand. So, for instance, this is one of the ways that you would start to condense your work week, because what happens when you do that, you think, oh my gosh, but how am I going to get X done? Right? How am I ever going to do that? But answering that question is exactly what moves your business to the next level, because you're having to answer a question that you would have come up against later in your business at some point, but you have to answer it earlier. So it's like, how could I create that kind of value in just 3 days, right? Or how could I make this launch work? And how could I do that? And those are the answers, right? How I train my team, and you start reverse engineering all the things that are going to create that for you. And so for a launch, it does come down to knowing that so much of there are kind of these two phases like you talked about, but the greatest gift you can give yourself is that sense of spaciousness later, right? So everything can be planned out beforehand, everything can be written. You don't have to be doing anything during the launch other than tuning in to what your people really need, and then speaking to that, spontaneously, being there for them, coming up with the great ideas, because you may realize, like, oh my gosh, it's so easy. I could just do this one thing and they would love that. And right. And that's the perfect way for them to, depending where your clients are, your audience is, either get to know me or decide that this is the thing for them. And I didn't have to do those other things that I was doing at all. What they really wanted was this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that makes me think of when we think about how we're spending our time too, is how do we focus on being in our zone of genius most of the time, if not majority of the time, right? And then when do we outsource, to an assistant, to a contractor, to a system? So when you look at that, that condensing work into less days. What do you notice about delegating? What do you choose to do as the CEO versus like what are you like, yeah, I actually shouldn't be really doing that. I can outsource it. How does that come up for you?
Yes, it's so interesting because I have so many clients that have they're a solopreneur and they think, well, I couldn't work 3 days a week because I need to have a big team. That's when I'll be able to work 3 days a week. But I have so many people with a big team who are like, I can't work 3 days a week because I have too big a team. I have too much going on. But the truth is, you can always design the life that you want to design. And like I said, 3-day work weeks, they're for some people, they're not for others. But when it comes to delegating, I have a client going through this right now. And we caught this thought where she was thinking, oh, this is what I have to do in order to scale. But so often it's not. So often it comes down to smarter systems, right? Or um, in the very beginning, we, especially as coaches, we have a tendency to really overdo it. Like we are so tied to our clients' results that we are going to like throw the kitchen sink at it. We're going to do everything to make it happen. And that can backfire sometimes because the clients themselves don't get to build the muscles that they really need to build in the same way. But what then happens is later on, you have all of these things that you're used to doing for clients or things that you think will make them feel more held or more secure, but they don't even need to do it. So she was going to hire an assistant to do all of these onboarding steps and all of these offboarding steps that, she normally does. And we started talking about it and we realized that if she were really clean and already believed that her clients get amazing results and already believed that they feel held just because of how she's speaking to them and how she, works with them, then she didn't need all this other stuff. Yeah. So when I'd come to thinking about delegating, I would first see everything that you can remove from your business first. You may not even need to. I know this is contrary to what a lot of people think because they're like, "No, as soon as you hit 6 figures, you need an assistant and everything." When I was starting to outsource with when I had my infant, I would have someone that would post on social media for me and do small jobs. He's still with me, but at the time I think I was paying him 5.50 or $6 an hour or something, and he's absolutely amazing, and he's in Bangladesh and was so, so, so happy and grateful. This was like a game changer for him, just these extra hours, and he's grown with the company over time, which is amazing, but it's like, you don't necessarily need the trappings that we hear about with businesses. I know so many entrepreneurs, multiple seven figures, and they're just really not profitable. And I think especially for women, building wealth is one of the most radical things that we can do. And we tend to get into old patriarchal patterns of giving it away, right? Of giving people extra hours, of believing we can't do it ourselves. And so we need that support because we just don't know how, some learned helplessness there. And it really erodes the wealth generation that is a really beautiful healing for our ancestral line if you want to go there, but I definitely have felt it for myself. I'm the person in my family actually that has earned the most, not just a woman, but out of all people I've earned more than anybody, and I come from poor Irish potato farmers, and I know that that is work that they put in to get me here, and I just feel very strongly about it. I feel really connected to one of my ancestors in particular, the one that actually came to the United States, and I think about her and I think about that, reinvention that she was willing to do, that uncharted territory she was willing to go into and to question, and because of that, it really changed the whole lineage for our family.
Mm. Yeah, that is so powerful because it is not just, the decisions that we're making on a daily basis, but like you said, it's like changing the story, changing the narrative. I know you're living in an unconventional way of like, I'm going to move overseas and I'm going to, live in Spain and I'm going to do, things different. And that then becomes an expander for so many people. That's like, oh, she can do it. I can do it. Other people can do it if that's what they desire. So it really is a much bigger yeah, a much bigger inspiration, right? That your lifestyle becomes too.
Yeah, and it's amazing the little things that hold us back. You know, the main thing that people would say to me when we made the decision to move over here and, retire my husband and like sell all of our things and actually do it, they said, but Dylan won't get to play Little League. Like Little League, and you think, I mean, there are these sweet things that we think about in, every culture has them, right? And if we remove somebody from that, well, what does that, oh, that's just such a sad thing. But we forget that we're gaining so much. We're gaining new customs, new sports, new things as well. And he did get 1 year of Little League. We have his little picture with his little bat and everything. So he's good, but it's worth questioning, what is it really that I'm holding on to?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
100%. All right, so I have one additional question for you as we get
okay.
closer to the end of our conversation. But this actually came up from a client recently. As we were looking at calendars and schedules and the holidays and all of that, and really coming back to anchoring in either a word or a mantra or a phrase or something that can be really top of mind when those little voices come in of wanting to overschedule and overcrowd and go back to the old ways. And for me, I always come back to the phrase of like, you set the pace. I'm like, you set the pace, you set the pace. Like not everything is
Mm.
so urgent. I don't have to attach to other people's urgency. I can kind of set the pace of my business, pace of my life. So that's something that I really like ground in. I would love to know if there's like something, a phrase, a word, a saying that you find yourself going back to and those little like tendencies come in.
Yeah, so one of my favorite ones for myself is power is feminine. And so when I see myself overdoing it or right moving into old structures that our society has held that weren't mine that I just learned, I remind myself that I get to be the one who just flicks my wrist and I expect my results, right? I get to be the one who channels a type of power that's truer to me and doesn't have to look like the way dudes did it back in, Mad Men, advertising on like in New York City. Like I get to do it my way.
Oh, that is powerful. It's a powerful
Oh,
way to
good.
thing to remember, especially I do a lot of work with my clients around just the masculine and the feminine and like being able to have that duality and the polarity between
Yes.
both. So I love that the feminine is powerful. So amazing.
Yeah.
I would love to close this out. I do want to I know people are listening that are like, where can I find her? How can I live her lifestyle? So I would definitely want you to share where you hang out, where people can find you, but I want to know, I close this all my conversations with this is really just digging into what is lighting you up these days. I know you have a lot of exciting things in your world, amazing lifestyle that you're living, but if you were to really point back to something in particular right now in this season for you that's really lighting you up, what would you say it is?
Oh, such a good question. It may sound like, really? That's what she's working on? But I'm just gonna share it because for me, it's become like a spiritual practice, really. But I am in one of those phases actually where we were talking about, where I've just launched a new community program. It's a little different, but it's just all about helping women create these businesses, right? Where it does fit you like a glove, where it is very aligned, and where we move and help each other move back into the alignment piece, not just of working the 3-day work week. It might be of doing the bold thing where you thought you weren't that person, but actually if we peel back all the gunk, it turns out you are that person, right? And so we're really moving you into like your right conditions. The same way an olive tree can live for thousands of years, but there's no irrigation. It's like this dry, rocky soil. It doesn't have anything that looks like the textbook nutrient dense, humid soil, right? In fact, it would die, it would wither and die in those kind of conditions. It needs the right conditions. And that's really what I think our work is in this life and this world, is to find out like what helps us bring forth our work in the world in the best way, and how can I just be with that, right? And be the olive tree. So since I'm in this stage where I'm growing this new baby, sort of, I notice myself like getting frustrated with the other things that take me away from that. I tend to hyper focus, and I'm really excited. I'm really interested in this, and I'm wanting to, make sure that I'm watching people to see, are they really getting the results, and like, do I need to add something in? And of course, all the things that come with it. Um, and so in those moments where I find myself frustrated with or complaining, I'm just practicing this radical enjoyment. And so with everything, I'm trying to, it's just mindfulness in a different package, but I'm like, how could I actually love picking up these clumps of dog fur on my floor? You know, typically drive me crazy. I like the floor to be clean, right? But how could I actually find enjoyment in this, right? How could I actually find enjoyment in the washing the dishes? Like, what if every moment of my life I took away the preconceptions of like, oh, this is dirty work or this is repetitive, boring work, and I just got back into like what if I could enjoy every moment? So, it's a practice, it's something I'm playing with right now. We'll see how it pans out, but yes,
Love
that's what
it.
I'm working on.
I love that. And that is powerful work. That is lifelong work. So that's definitely
Yes.
a great place to be leaning into, especially, this time of year as things like ramp up around the world. It's like really getting
Yes.
super present and really slowing it down. So
Yeah, and, like, usually I would reject kind of the ramping up and the thing, but I'm like, "Ooh, how can I actually hold this energy? How can I, like, feel the tempo as something that's kind of a little fun as opposed to
mhm,
something that's requiring more of me?"
yeah,
I'm just trying to really stretch my thoughts and kind of walk my talk, because I've noticed, thoughts that I never realized I've just been thinking my whole life. And I'm just trying to shed all of that.
mm, amazing. Well, where can people find you? Where can they? I know you mentioned you have a podcast. Like, where do you hang out most of the
Mhm.
time if people want to connect with you?
So I am at The Uncommon Way everywhere, which makes it really easy to find
Easy.
me, theuncommonway.com. I'm on Instagram at The Uncommon Way. I have a podcast called The Uncommon Way. And so I just try and make it really simple and easy, but I do love to connect with people that have found me from, different places. I just think it's really fascinating. I have a lot of clients that come to me through Google, and I just find that absolutely magical because I never know who I'm going to get on the phone with, what their story is, how they found me. So if you do come over, I hope you'll just pop in my, inbox or DMs and say hi, because it's a really cool thing that we all get to connect in these ways. I mean,
Yes.
it's really nice.
And now you have a bunch of people on the island of Guam who are listening to this and listening to
Oh,
you, and so you're stretching now all over across the Pacific. So,
oh,
it's
so
that's
exciting.
amazing
Thank you for
how
this.
podcasts can do that, right? Can just expand
Yes.
reach, getting people into each other's worlds and like expanding the web a little bit. So, thank you
Oh,
so much for creating the time. I know morning for you, evening for me, and it felt really exciting to share this with my community. So, thank you again for the
oh,
time.
thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, please rate and review, and don't forget to subscribe. Learn more at enowellnesscollective.com and connect with us on Instagram at Eno Wellness Collective.